Well, I want to say hello to everybody who's watching on television, to all of you who are online around the world. It's great to have you with us today. Today is an important day because this is the very first time that we have started on the east coast of Australia, in Sydney, Australia. And so wherever you are around the world, it's wonderful to have you with us. Well, now everybody that is here, after you fill this out, I put my name, my email address and my phone number on it. We'll give them to someone at the door at the end, and that way we can send you stuff. Now, you also got this, and this, once you've ripped off your card, I'm going to give a little talk for a while now, and occasionally I say something good. It's not very often, but if I do, you don't want to forget it. Do you realise, anybody here school teachers? Do you realise that school teachers tell us that what doesn't get written down gets forgotten? Like within 24 hours, something like 60, 70% of things that are said are forgotten. So I don't want to be forgotten by tomorrow. So if something is said that's good. Now, write it down. I want to talk about imagining, or particularly I want to talk about dreaming. I want to talk about dreams. And today, this is a dream, and in a sense, it has begun. In all of our lives, there's been some point in our life where we've all dreamed, hasn't there? There have been those dreams we have about what we can do, about who we will become, about where we'll go, about what we'll achieve. And some of us who are young, we dream a big dream about the future. And then you get a little older and you begin to stop and say to yourself, well, some of those dreams, maybe they will come together and maybe they won't. Some of them are private dreams about the kind of person that we want to be. Or sometimes they're those public dreams we have that are in our heart that ask the question, how do we want to be seen by others? Because we all get concerned about those things. And so if you're here today, in a sense, you're at the beginning of a dream for some of us who've believed in what this can be and what we're about to do. And as I said before, if you're here on the first day, this is a great day to be here because we're just getting going. I have a dream that we will get too big for this room in time and we'll go down to the cube and we'll fill the cube a few times a weekend. I have a dream to see thousands and thousands of children come to a place each week that they love to come to church because they love to come to church. I have a dream that those thousands of little kids will have outrageous fun. I have a dream that those little kids will meet adults who will love them, adults who will care for them, adults who will encourage them and help them grow up into great human beings. I have a dream where people will meet life partners. And at some point I'll tell you my story, and I've worked in church work for a long time. And if I had $1 for every person that's met a future partner that they've married, I'd have a lot of dollars today. And it doesn't matter whether you're old or young. I have been around where lots of people have met. And my prayer is that people would grow fiercely in love with each other and live amazing lives because of it. I also have a dream where people are encouraged to pursue what's on their heart. And to live daringly despite sometimes the negativities in the world that says you can't. And that, you couldn't yourself. I have a dream of being a part of something that will change the world, not just something that I do on a weekend. And when you think back over your life, have you ever wasted any time? Have you ever wasted time in your life where, a day goes by and then a week, a month, a year or years, and then you look back and you go, where did the time go? What did I do? Have you ever wasted time and you stop and you say to yourself, well, I got distracted by work or family or other things. And some of them were important, but before you know it, you're 20 or you're 40 or you're 60 or you're 70 and the years are gone by. Do you ever stop? As you know, I'm about 27. And, and I sometimes stop and think to myself, where have all the years gone? And I can still remember dreaming. I can still remember believing in what I was going to achieve, what I was going to do, what I was going to look like. And it was not like this, I can tell you. I remember all those things. And do you ever wish you could turn the clock back? Do you ever wish there were words that you could take back? That there were things that you said that you wish you hadn't said? That there were things and opportunities that you wish you'd taken that you missed? Well, I've come to the conclusion, and this is obvious, I've only got one life, and this is it, and this is where I am today. And whilst I've wasted some of my life, and that would be true, a lot of the time I've been busy, though, in doing all sorts of things like most of us, but I am here, and I've only got this much left to go, however long that is, and I want to make this bit worth it. And in some sense, that's what I want this place to be. that every person who walks through the doors of these places that we have would stop and say, I may not be able to change yesterday, but I can do something about today. I can change my life to where it can go into the future. We've only got one life. Well, today I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing, but I can't tell you everything because it's a bit too big to tell you everything. But I'm going to do that by telling you a story. And I'm going to tell you a story from the Bible. And some of us will be familiar with the story. Some of us may never have heard this story before. Now, just to be confusing, in the Bible, Joseph was a popular name. There's a whole stack of different Josephs. Remember Mary and Joseph, who are the mothers of Jesus? Well, we're not talking about that Joseph. We're talking about a Joseph that was listed right back in the very beginning of the Bible. And he comes from a family of 12 boys, and he's the second youngest. Now imagine having 12 boys. I come from a family of 5 boys, and that was exhausting, and I was one of them. And, and it's kind of having 2 basketball teams with 1 spare on the bench, and you can play each other the whole time, Imagine feeding that. I remember Mum used to feed the 5 of us, and we would eat, my 4 brothers and I, and we would eat. You actually don't read anything about Joseph's mother in the Bible. And do you realise why that probably is? Because she was probably exhausted the whole time. Well, if you have a look at the screen, in Genesis chapter 37, we're going to read a little bit of this on the screen, and I'll read you through the story. And it says, Jacob settled in the land where his father had lived, as an alien, the land of Canaan. This is the story of the family of Jacob. So Jacob is the dad. Joseph, being 17 years old, was shepherding the flock with his brothers. He was a helper to the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel, which was another name for Jacob Israel, same name. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he'd made him a long robe with sleeves. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all the brothers, they hated him and couldn't speak peacefully to him. So here's a few things about Joseph. Joseph is 17. He is helping his brothers look after the sheep. He brought bad reports back to Dad. In other words, he dobbed on his brothers about how his brothers were doing. We don't know about what. Jacob, his father, loved him because he was the child of his old age. Over the years, I've prayed for many people who've wanted to get pregnant and have struggled getting pregnant as mums and dads. And I've met many people who've had children in latter years in their life, and they've just been overjoyed. And there's a kind of special joy that comes along when you've gone through all your life and you don't have children, and then you have a child. And Jacob, Israel, he loved this little boy. And he'd made his dad this long-sleeved robe, and his brothers saw that their dad loved him and more than them, and so they hated him, and they didn't speak well to him. So that's the backdrop of the story. Have a look on the screen again. Once Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. So Joseph has this dream, and we're talking about dreams today. He said to them, listen to this dream that I dreamed. There we were binding sheaves in the field. And suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, and then the sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. His brothers said to him, are you indeed to reign over us? Are you indeed to have dominion over us? So they hated him even more because of his dreams and his words. And if you have a look at the screen, this next screen, a sheaf of wheat was a gathering of sheep of wheat together that was bound. There it is. It was bound, and so they gathered these. And he comes along, and young Joseph, 17, says to his 11 brothers, he says to them, he says, "There's me, and then all the 11 of you, and you are going to bow down to me. In other words, I'm going to rule. I'm going to rule over you." This didn't go down well with his brothers. They didn't like their second youngest brother coming along and saying to them, well, you're going to bow down to us. Well, he then has another dream. And we read it there. And it says, he had another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, look, I have another dream. The sun, the moon, and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what kind of dream is this that you have had? Shall we indeed come, I and your mother and your brothers, and bow down to the ground before you? So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now, if you go back and study in the ancient text, the sun and the moon, they symbolised ruling. They were a symbol of rulers. So in other words, what he was saying is, I'm going to be a ruler and all of you are going to bow down to me. This did not go well with him. Have you ever noticed that often people have a dream, a vision, and they can tell you what it is, even though they don't know how they're going to get there, they don't know how they're going to fund it, or they don't know how they're going to make it happen. Think about some of those dreams that you've had when you were young, those things that you wanted to do with your life. And then you think to yourself, how will ever that happen? Rosemary and I were talking, we've been married for 33 years. A couple of days ago, it was our 33rd wedding anniversary. And we're having this conversation, did we think that life would turn out the way it has? And when I met Rosemary, I was a quiet, retiring kind of a guy, No, actually, she was very quiet. Rosemary would never have stood up in front of a group of people at all, ever talked to anybody. She was very, very shy. And we looked back and we thought, we just never thought that life would turn out like it has. We've done some wonderful things together. We've made some mistakes together. We've raised 5 kids. We've got 5 grandchildren. And there are days when you stop and think, I wish I'd done a better job. Any of you ever think that? I wish you could have changed a few words here and there, been home a bit more, had a wise thing to say when you needed to say it. Aren't there things in life which you just wish you could just pull back, but you can't? And there are some of you here today. You have a dream. I can see it in your face. You have a dream, and and you don't understand it completely. And some of you are sitting here and saying, "Well, I'm a bit maybe older." But there's some things that happen about a dream, and a dream can get swamped. I once read where it said that people stop dreaming around the age of 25, and then they don't start dreaming again until they're about 55. Because what happens is life happens, and children happen, and relationships happen, and career happens. And I've travelled so much, and I've met so many older people who kind of, in their 55s and 60s, all of a sudden wake up one day and go, there's still time. There's still time. But dreams are tested. If you look on the screen, it says dreams are tested. Dreams take time, and dreams can be torturous at times. Dreams, are tested. Dreams take time, and they can be torturous. Remember when we were young, because dreams come in all shapes and sizes, don't they? I wanted to be Neil Diamond. Seriously, in 1972, Neil Diamond came to Australia, and any of you remember Hot August Night? Yeah, some of you are too young to appreciate good music, but anyway. And he came, and Hot August Night, even when he came, the Prime Minister met him. When Neil Diamond came to town, and some of us have to be rock stars or entertainers or sportsmen. Others, we have dreams to be business people or scientists or in medicine or educators. Some of us have dreams to be builders or tradespeople. Some of us have dreams to be explorers or adventurers or discoverers in our own way. Some of us dream to travel. I was talking to someone the other day, and I'd said to them before they were going away overseas for a few months, and I said, my dad used to say to me, travel broadens the mind. And this young person said to me, I didn't believe you at the time, but it really does. It really does. Some of us have dreams of being self-employed, a boss, a manager, a CEO of a company. Others, we have a dream of a marriage or a friendship or a relationship. Some of us dream of being parents, don't we? For all of us, we dream of being happy. For all of us. And Joseph's dream was, I'm going to be a ruler. But he was the 11th in a family of 12. Now, Rosemary and I, our youngest daughter, this week got engaged. And a few weeks ago, I was in Perth. I'm originally from Perth. And I was in Perth, and before I got there, a few weeks before, her boyfriend that she's been going out for some time, he said to me, can I meet you? Can I meet you for a chat? Rings up and says, can I talk with you? Now, he never rings. So I thought there's one of only 2 things happening. It's off and he's a bit worried about her, or he's going to take this to the next place. Well, I said to him, okay. I said, well, I don't have a house in Perth or anything like that anymore. And where do you want to meet for this meeting? And so it was decided that we'd meet at all places where people tell you they want to marry their daughter, McDonald's, right? So, and his name is Zach. And so we turn up and we meet there in McDonald's. And when we first start, he just chats for a long time. He just talks. And I'm thinking, are we getting to anything? Or he just wanted to hang out with me and be friends. And then eventually begins. And he says to me, I love your daughter.
Cassandra. And he said, I want to spend the rest of my life with her. And I was sitting here thinking, and it just flashed through my mind, you know how you have inappropriate thoughts at times? You know, you just have inappropriate thoughts. I've got 4 daughters. And I've done a bit of study of history and stuff like that, and I was thinking in other nations, when women get married, you know, and boys give money, a dowry to the father. And I thought to myself, I've had 4. If only I lived in one of those cultures, I'd be wealthy. And so he's talking away, and he's going on and on and on about how much he loves her, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, sure, okay, that's good, but where's the money? And so he ends with, I'd like your blessing to marry Cassandra. That was how he ended. He said, I'd like your blessing to marry Cassandra. And my second thought after the money was don't answer straight away. Because I remember when I asked Rosemary, we had talked to Rosemary's father, he was a tough ask, I tell you something. Seriously, any of you are fathers, don't do it, you know. And I thought, so I thought, well, I'll just question him for a while and see if he measures up. So I said to him, what do you think about the fact that they've just found water on Mars, you know? and I said to him, you know, President Barack Obama is in his 2nd term of presidency as the United States. How do you think he's gone? He just looked at me blankly. And then eventually I said, okay, all right, okay. And we had this good chat. And our daughter Cassandra said to us, so we went over there to Perth this week, and all of that happened this week, and it was good. And she said to us, she said, we've been going out for 6 years. And she said, I said to him, it's not going to 7. And see, she had a dream. Joseph had a dream. And Joseph's dream was that he would be a ruler. And one day his brothers are looking after, and I'll tell you a fair bit of the other story because the story goes on for chapters and chapters, and I'll just give you the short version. You can go read it later on. And Joseph gets sent by his dad out to see his brothers who are looking after the sheep, and his dad just wants to know how they're going. Or when they see him coming, because it says, as we read, it says they hated him, they made this decision to kill him. And they made this decision, we'll catch him and we'll kill him. Well, his oldest brother, he's all for getting rid of him, but he doesn't want to kill him. And so he talks them into, why don't we sell him to a passing group of slave traders? And he gets sold to the captain and sold. And they take his good jacket and they put animal stuff, you know, blood on it and stuff like that. And they go back and they say to his dad, Dad, your son got killed. Joseph's no more. And his dad loved his son and grieved greatly. And so here's Joseph has got this dream. I want to be a ruler. But here he is in captivity. Where's Joseph's dream now? And then he gets sold again to a man who's kind of an official in the country. But what happens is this man's wife takes a liking to him. And she tries on multiple occasions to seduce him. And he doesn't want any of it. Or one day she literally comes up to him and grabs him and he says no, but he takes off, but she then ends up with his coat, grabbing his coat. And she screams out because she feels insulted, and she screams out, and people come and check on her, and then she tells her husband, this guy Joseph tried to seduce me, which was not true, and he gets thrown in prison. And he spends years in prison. But he's got a dream. And his dream is, I want to be a ruler. Well, where's his dream now? Well, there's 2 prisoners in prison who have a dream themselves. And he's a wise guy, Joseph, and they said, well, what are we meant to do? And they come and tell him the dream. What does this mean? And he kind of interprets it. And to one he says, you're going to die in a few days' time. That's what that dream means. And to another one he says, you're going to be restored back into the Pharaoh, the king's house. And he says to him, when you do, would you remember me to the Pharaoh? Because I'm kind of forgotten down here. You ever realise that sometimes when you have a dream, you can feel forgotten sometimes? That what you want, you can just fall into oblivion and no one notices you. But what happens is, sure enough, one gets killed. The other one ends up in Pharaoh's and he gets forgotten, and more years go by. Where's his dream now? And then one day Pharaoh has this dream himself, but no one can tell him what it means, and he's looking for wisdom really. And then this guy who was a prisoner says, there was once years ago this man who interpreted my dream, and it was kind of true. And so Pharaoh sends for him to get him cleaned up, and they bring him out, and and Pharaoh tells him the story, and he says to him, he says, let me tell you what that means. He says, there's going to be 7 years of plenty in the country, in Egypt, all of Egypt, there's going to be 7 years of plenty. And then what's going to happen is there's going to be 7 years of famine. And what you need to do is in the 7 years of plenty, you need to save food for the 7 years of when there's going to be famine. And by the way, you need to pick a person of good standing who's wise to oversee this. Pharaoh goes, okay, goes away, looks right throughout the land, and then comes to the conclusion, I can't find anyone. And if you look on the screen in Genesis 41, it says this, now therefore let Pharaoh select a man who is discerning and wise and set him over the land of Egypt, Joseph tells him. But he can't find one. And so Pharaoh comes back and says this, next screen. It says this, so Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has shown you all this, there's no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only with regard to the throne will I be greater. Only with regard to the throne will I be greater. He goes from prison to the palace. He goes from captured to all of a sudden being the second most powerful ruler in all of Egypt. But years have gone by between being 17 and all of a sudden what comes to pass. In other words, something changes for him in the waiting. Well, back at home, his dad and his 11 brothers begin to experience the drought as well, and the famine. And his father says, "Listen, I hear in Egypt they've got food," and he sends his sons over to Egypt to buy food, and they come before Joseph, and they say this. Now, Joseph was governor over the land. It was he who sold to all the people of the land what had been saved up. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the ground. Look at that, it says, and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground. In other words, the dream of the 11 sheaves of the sun and the moon, and you will bow down to me, the dream has come true. Now, he maybe didn't share it too smartly with his brothers and sisters. If I'd gone home to my brothers and say, listen, I'm going to be really, and you're going to, they probably wouldn't have appreciated that at all. Yeah. And it goes on in verse 9, it says, and although Joseph had recognised his brothers, they did not recognise him. So he recognised them, they didn't recognise him. Joseph also remembered the dreams that he had dreamed about them. See, when we achieve the thing that God puts in our heart, I've talked to so many people who remember what happened in the privacy and in the quiet places of their life when they remember. And at first he doesn't let them know it's him, but eventually he does reveal himself, and he says to them, don't worry that you sold me into slavery. Don't worry that you hated me. And have a look at this. It says, and God sent me before you to preserve you for a remnant on earth and to keep you alive for you many survivors. So what he begins to say is this. He says, don't worry about the fact that you treated me like this. There's a good that has come out of this, and there was a purpose that you did not understand by even your actions. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his house and ruler over all the land of Egypt. What Joseph says to his brothers is this. God set this up. The mistakes you made, the hate you had, you selling me, the fact it took so long, it was all part of the plan. It was all part of the plan. Do you think Joseph would ever have thought to himself, it's never going to happen? You know, I'm hated by my brothers. I'm questioned by my father. Remember it said his father questioned him. I'm sold as a slave. I'm in prison because a woman has accused me of something I never did. And then I'm forgotten in prison. Do you think, how am I ever going to get to the place of being a ruler? And there's something that breaks in us, isn't there? There's something that breaks in us when the dream we have doesn't happen. Well, I want to give you 6 things concerning dreams, and you might want to write these down and reflect on them later on. 6 things concerning dreams, concerning dreaming. Number 1 is when we don't achieve our dream, our potential, others are affected and suffer. When we don't achieve our dream, when we don't achieve the thing that's in our heart, a better marriage, people suffer. When forgiveness and peace don't operate between a husband and wife, our children suffer and our friends suffer. When your company doesn't achieve what you believed it should, people suffer. When your sporting team doesn't achieve, like this afternoon, there'll be a lot of suffering somewhere in Australia. When your business, the same. So when we don't achieve our dream, our potential, others are affected and suffer along the way. The second thing that's interesting about dreaming is adversity comes to every person who has a dream. Adversity comes to every person who has a dream. Every person. Adversity comes to every person. The stock market crashes. It's out of your control, isn't it? A supplier lets you down in your business. An employee doesn't deliver on what they should. An accident happens. A delay without reason occurs. A mistake that you make occurs. Adversity comes to every person who has a dream. Every person. Every person. It was always that way. I don't know anybody who really achieves the big dreams of their lives where there aren't times of testing. Sometimes where it's not torturous, where it isn't a question of hanging on. Another lesson, a third lesson concerning dreaming is this. It's out of the spotlight that dreams are built. It's out of the spotlight that dreams are built. It's, in other words, there's 2 parts to this. It's in hiddenness where our character is built. It's in the hiding place. It's in the hiding place. It's in the hiding place. It's out of the spotlight that dreams are built. I've shared this many times, and so some of you, and I don't know most of you here or watching, but when I was a teenage boy, I had this dream, for whatever reason, weirdly, that one day I wanted to give talks and help people. That was kind of my dream when I was at school. But there was a problem. I was shy. I was very shy. Not as shy as Rosemary, but I was very shy. And I didn't get picked for those sorts of things at all, for doing things in public, but I believed that that was what I was meant to do. I never got chosen for anything like that, particularly when I was young. But I remember being 18 years old, leaving school, and thinking, one day it'll happen. And a little bit like dreaming I'll be Neil Diamond one day. I used to get in the shower and I'd set the thing just at the right level, and I'd give a talk. And from the time I was 18 until I was 30, I virtually every day gave a talk in the shower. And I used to call myself the naked preacher, and I'm going to release a book on it by that title one day, but it won't have pictures, all right? See, it's what you do in hiding. Dreams are built in hiding, aren't they? They're done in those hidden places, in the privacy of our hearts. Because even right now, you wouldn't want to stand up in front, some of you, and tell us what your dream is, because it's not developed enough. Because it's still that quiet thing, because it's so much part of who we are, whether it be for a marriage, a job, a child, what we want to do. The other part of that dreams are built out of the spotlight. Your gift is enhanced out of the spotlight. It's what you do quietly. You have a look at an athlete. How many athletes? We'll watch the Olympics in a year's time. And most of those athletes, most of us don't know their names except at the Olympics, don't we? And right now they're at training. And right now they're training for hours every day in private. Every day. Steve Jobs, in the solitude of a garage, built Apple. No one really knew who was there. I follow AFL football, Australian football. Nat Fyfe, who is just won the Brownlow medal, which is the kind of most valuable player in the competition. He talked about, at his acceptance speech, he talked about the fact when he was young he didn't know he couldn't mark the ball, so he'd get on a trampoline and he'd jump up and down and he'd catch the ball on the trampoline until he learned. But who saw that? He talked about the fact that when he was 9 years old, he would take a notepad to bed every day and he would write out plays of where players should stand. He just couldn't get other 9-year-olds to believe in doing that as 9-year-olds. It's what you do in private, isn't it? Actors who rehearse in their bedrooms where no one sees. See, your gift is enhanced in the dark and your dreams come true. See, your dream not happening immediately doesn't mean it's not happening. But other things are happening along the way. The fourth thing that I've learned about dreaming is your gifts make way for you. Your gifts make way for you. The scripture is very clear. The scripture actually tells us, the Bible tells us, that your gifts make way for you. See, Joseph's gift made way for him. Eventually, it was recognised. It was recognised. Your gift, what you rehearse in private, will make way for you. The fifth thing I've learned about dreaming is this, is that deliberate preparation is necessary. It doesn't happen accidentally. It doesn't happen accidentally. You don't walk around saying, pick me, pick me, pick me. People want a better marriage. You need to do things to read. You need to listen to people maybe who've walked the journey before you. Now, we live in a country where people say, I don't want anyone to tell me anything at times. But the truth is you need to learn from others. You need to learn to talk with others. And one of the things we're blessed with is the world where we can all read. Pretty much we can all read. And the power of reading gives us the ability to learn from others. And finally, the thing that I've very much learnt about dreaming is you have to confront your problems and your challenges. You've got to confront them. If you have a dream, you've got to confront what's wrong. I was speaking to a woman recently in another place. And she said to me, I've fallen in love with this guy. He's gorgeous and I love him. She said, but there's a problem. And I said, what's that? And she said, I could see myself living my whole life with him. She said, he drinks. And he drinks to excess. He's not just a drinker, he drinks to excess. And he says to me, I'll do anything for you. She said, but I'm scared. She said, I'm scared to fulfill a dream with him because of what he's doing. And we talked for a while about how to approach that. See, you have to confront your problems and your challenges if you're to achieve the dream that God has put within you. So today you've come here, those of you who've never been before, and on this first day, you've come to a place of dreams. And you might say, how is this church? How are we the church today? How are we the church? Well, Jesus said, I have come that you might have life and have it to the full. I've come that you might have life and have it to the full. If you go and research the word life in the original meaning of the word life, it comes from a Greek phrase which means the quality and the content of our life. Jesus was saying, I've come that the quality and the content of your life would be completely full, would be all that it could be, could be all that it could be. Full life means to achieve what you're here for. Because what you're here for, what God's put you on the planet for, whatever that is, whether it's in public or it's in private, whether anybody ever sees you or no one ever does, what God has put you on the planet for, he wants you to do with a complete and full manner. Surely that's what the church is about, is it not? Surely the church is about us being who God wants us to be. Surely the church is about us achieving all that God put within our heart to do. Surely that's what the church is. That's what I believe the church is. When I read about the church and study the church, that's what I believe it is. And sadly, many of us don't experience that in church, do we? We don't experience that encouragement to be all we can be. Well, we are going to help you fulfill your dreams. That's what this place is about. It's about helping you, inspire you to dream. Because life at times is not easy. Tragedy comes, doesn't it? A good friend of mine who died this week, died the week before, his funeral was this week. This guy who just turned 59, and he died this week. 5 children, died of cancer after 18 months, just came on suddenly. A really good man. We all make mistakes, and we've got to come back from those. We live in a world where violence, I've never known the world to be as violent as it is today. And just kilometres from some of our homes now. Have you noticed that? Just read the news here in Sydney in the last few weeks, in the last few days. We live in a world of unfairness and injustice. We live in a world where our own personal weakness gets in the way of it. And yet Jesus says, I came to give you a full quality and content to your life. And so the church, when I look at the church is always that place that sets us back to the beginning. The church is always that place that comes along and says, the way it is doesn't need to be the way it is. It can change. I think some of you, because you're here, if the church does its job well, some of you will get richer and wealthier, because that's what God wants for some of you. Some of you will be better husbands and better wives. You'll be better parents. Some of you will break addictions. Some of you will be better students. Some of you will help change the world in ways that today you can't even imagine. Some of you will live publicly and some of you will live privately. If we do our job, if we're the church, and we're properly the church. And why do I say all of that? Because I think that's the message of Jesus. The message of Jesus is to come and help us live well. There's a whole pile of little kids in that room out there right now. Some of you are children. The church's goal is to help those kids be the greatest little human beings that they can be as they live their life. You might be thinking, well, I'm too old to dream. I missed it. And I want to say you're not. And maybe if what you wanted has passed, there's a future with your story still to be written. God does not leave us or abandon us. He doesn't. And Jesus said, I came that you might have life and life to the full. He didn't say I was saying that to 20-year-olds or teenagers. He said, I came to say that to all of you. So we want this to be a place of safety, a place to dream and to build those dreams and to build them large. And so come along. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. But if you want to come and help us build it, you can, but you don't have to do anything. You can just belong. And you can, and hopefully you can come and find a place where you get loved. In the Bible, it says that character is built in waiting. Our character gets built in waiting. And that endurance builds our character. So to endure and to wait will build it. Well, tomorrow, I want to send you all. Tomorrow I want to send you something. And that's the reason why this card is so important. And if you're watching on screen, you can the address will be on your screen right now. But if you're here, if you just write your name and your phone number and your email address, I want to send you something tomorrow that will follow up from what we've talked about today. Additionally, Rosemary talked about Starting Line, which is going to be over there. Starting Line, see that spot right there? That's Starting Line. What's Starting Line? Whenever you start something, you go to the starting line. I don't know if you've ever done that. When I first went to university, you know what they make you do? You go to anybody ever been to orientation day at uni? And they tell you where everything is? Well, Starting Line that's what it is. So when we finished, Rosemary and I are going to come and stand over here, and we'd love to meet all of you and have a chat and tell you. And I want to give you some stuff. I want to give you some stuff on Starting Line about what this is all about. And so today, we are just beginning at the building of a dream. I was in the United States a couple of weeks ago, and I sat next to a woman who, in 1995, got together with a group of other people, about 6 of them, and they had a dream to build a church, that would reach people. And I was sitting in this place, and I didn't know who she was, and at the beginning they said, turn around and say hello to someone. So I turned to this lady, and she recognised my accent. Well, I don't feel I've got an accent, but she thought I did. And I talked to her, and she said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just visiting. And she said, I was here when it was 6 people. She said, today it's 30,000. And she said, but I was here on the first day. And today is the first day. Who knows what God might do? Who knows what dreams might be built? Who knows where God might take us? Who knows who we might meet, what we might achieve, and what we might be encouraged to do? Surely that's the church. And one of the things that the Catholic Church, along with many other churches, but the Catholic Church has stood up and said, we think this is a good thing. And so today we work with the full blessing of the Catholic Church. And it's exciting to be here. You don't have to be part of the Catholic Church to be here, but it's exciting to be part of it. So this is a place where your dream, please God, can come true. So that's what we're going to do. So let's pray, and then we're going to go home. Dear Father, we thank you today that you love us. And Lord God, we've all come from different places around the city today. And Lord God, and whether we're watching in another country, or we are up the road, Lord God, or we're here in the room, we've come. And God, we ask that you would help us build the dreams in our lives that need to be built. And maybe, God, there are some of us here today and we feel far from you. Maybe we were once attending church and we've quit. And we've quit for many, who knows what reason. Today we open our mind and our heart to being open to hearing from you. You speak to us. You guide us. You lead us. And you do within us whatever you choose to do. So God, as we start at the starting line, we ask that you would do whatever you want to do with us and be amazing. And Lord, allow the dreams that you even want to plant in our heart today, maybe for the very first time, to find good soil so that they can grow. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.